Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Vic Life podcast, where we talk about life and faith in Jesus from a Brethren in Christ perspective. I'm Ryan Stockton, and here with me is my friend Scott McFeet. Hey, Scott.
Hey, Ryan. How's it going?
Going pretty well. Going
Good.
pretty well. Suffering through the allergies, but I think that's the name of the game for just about everybody this time of year. So, but today I'm really excited. Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different from what we've done so far in previous episodes, but it's something that, Scott, you and I talked about doing this kind of thing from the very beginning. And we were talking about even doing a podcast for the BIC. What is one thing that we'd like to do? We want to talk to local pastors in the BIC and just kind of see what's going on.
Yeah, from anywhere, like rural, backwoods, somewhere in the United States, whatever, to the largest
urban
BIC church, whatever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We kind of wanted to talk to everyone and anyone we could to sort of bring a little more of a unifying flavor, right?
Absolutely.
So
yeah. And not just local churches as in local to Scott and I, but local as in as opposed to working for the denomination or something like that.
Yeah.
It could just help us to get a better picture of what's going on across the states and help us get a better feel for being a part of something bigger and appreciate what God is doing in specific places around the globe, but here in the U.S. in particular. And so I'm really excited for today. We are joined right now by Pastor Jen Hickey. She is the pastor at Community of Faith Church in Roanoke, Virginia. Jen, thank you so much for your time here today.
Thanks for having me. Hello.
Well, we first met, so long ago, at least 10 minutes, right? I mean, it's been, we go way back.
Way back.
That's the magic of Zoom and the internet, right?
Yeah, we go way back. But the way we heard about you, Jen, was because of the BIC blog. Often, sometimes we'll pull some stories from the blog to highlight on our show. And the topic for that blog was you and another pastor as well. But I really wanted to talk to you and hear about your experience and things like that. So we just have a bunch of questions that we've sent to you. And so hopefully you've got them all memorized. You know exactly what you're going to say.
Absolutely.
Everything is you've been practicing for weeks for this, I'm sure.
I have. I've written it out. I've got a script.
Good.
Oh, very good. Very good. Awesome. Well, Jen, tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's get to know each other a little bit here.
Get to know each other. So I'm Jen. My husband and Dan and I, we live in Buchanan, Virginia, which is about a half an hour north of Roanoke. We've been here, 7 years in October, but we moved here so I could be the director of dining at Washington University. So when we moved here, our youngest son, so we have 5 kids, it's both our second marriage. So 5 kids collectively, no new kids. We're done that. Our youngest is 21, so we're good on that front. But we moved here about almost 7 years ago, so we could do that. And with our youngest son, the rest of our kids and grandkids live Northern Virginia, Macungie, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, that area. So, but my boys, our 2 youngest, both live in Roanoke. So they haven't quite yet ventured far.
Yeah.
And so we're here, and now we're at COF in Roanoke, and it's been great. It's been great.
Awesome.
So.
Okay. So what I heard in that little introduction was that you did not move there for ministry. You moved there for another job. So ministry is not your first career. So you look at that.
Not even remotely close to my first career. So I came to the Vic when we were at Grantham Church. So my first husband and I were living in Dillsburg, and I was working at Red Robin Restaurant. Well, we weren't really living. We were living in that area. I was working general manager at Red Robin Restaurant and was pregnant with our second son. And 8 months pregnant, my husband decides we're going to find a new church. And so someone that he worked with invited him to Grantham. And I got to tell you, that was not excessively exciting to me. I got to be honest.
Yeah.
But I worked a lot of weekends. You drive up this beautiful driveway and there's this massive brick building and it's a beautiful church and the people are wonderful, but it's very, this is a church kind of thing, right? And I'm 8 months pregnant. I'm sitting in pews, hard pews, and I'm not comfortable. And all I thought, and this is not a good thought, but I'll say it anyway. All I thought was, I'm really glad I work a lot of Sundays because it just wasn't my kind of church. I grew up Catholic. I was in a vineyard church, so pretty charismatic, different kind of style.
Wow.
But as I'm sitting there in church, there's an ad on the bulletin for an office manager. And I nudged Andy and said, I could do that. And we both laughed because I'm not an office person. God gives you gifts that you can use, but that doesn't mean you like them. You just have them, right? And man, if God didn't beat me over the head for months, and I mean months. And so I finally called. This was like March. And in May or June, I finally called and said, can you just tell me about the job? I'm going to appease God, right? Like he just wants me to find out about the job. He doesn't actually want me to have the job. And so I call and she says, we're making the decision in like 2 weeks. Bring me your resume. I don't even have a resume, Red Robin, almost 10 years. Oh, right on an old one as I'm cringing, because how do you do that? So I threw together a resume. I bring it in. She gives me the information and I look at it and I say, thanks so much. This really isn't for me. Seems fair, right?
Sure.
God, beat. That's what he's doing to me. And so Pastor Terry Brensinger, you guys probably know who he is. He was pastor at the time and he calls me in and he says, Jen, you should come in and talk. I'm so glad I got your resume. And I said, yeah, I got to be honest. I'm not really interested in the job. Well, why don't you come in and talk anyway? You're new. I'll get to know you. And I'm going, okay. And again, I told him I didn't want the job. And I talked to every staff member and told them that I didn't want the job. Then I get a call saying, come meet the board. But I don't want the job. Terry says, come anyway. Say hello. Meet some new people. I go and meet the board. What's one of your favorite things to do? Oh, I love listening to live music and going dancing. I don't know anything about the big church. Dancing was not a thing, apparently. And so I explained to them that I didn't really want the job. Prairie calls me, offers me the job. And I said, there's a disconnect somewhere along this whole process because I don't really want the job. And he says, it's Friday. Take the weekend. Give me a call on Monday and let me know what you think. And Monday I called and I asked for the job because God was beating me over the head the whole weekend. And we argued. And I said, God, I understand this is what you want from me, but you're not the one who has to do it. I do. And I don't want to.
Wow.
And so we have these things, God and I, throughout our lives. He always wins, but dang, And so I started working at Grantham, and the people are wonderful. I mean, it really is a great church. And so I'm working for Terry, and we're in the process of change. And all I just kept saying was, I'm going to make you all nuts because I'm going to be bored in about 3 months. There's things that are going to be fixed, need to be fixed, and I'm going to be bored. And so he kept giving me, he'd ask random questions like, hey, do you think we can have balloons on Sunday? I'm thinking maybe we'll release balloons. I said, well, how many balloons? He's like 400. Okay. I didn't realize it was rhetorical. Terry's a big idea guy. I love Terry. So an hour later, I go and say, all right, the balloons will be here by 9:30. They're going to do bunches around the sanctuary. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, you just asked me for balloons. I said, Terry, if you don't want me to do something, you can't actually ask me a question.
That's great.
So we kept the balloons. And it was the Sunday that Pauline Pfeiffer, who wasn't Polycene Alicene at the time, came to visit the church to see if she was going to apply to be the associate executive pastor. And she saw the balloons and thought, wow, Grantham's really, changing.
Wow.
So, God does these things, right? And so anyway, a few months later, I'm now bored. And so Terry says, why don't you go to seminary? You didn't go to a Christian college. Go take some Bible classes. Great. I love school. I'm one of those weird people that could be in school forever. And so I went to seminary. And at the end of seminary, Terry's like, you're going to be a pastor. I'm like, yeah, I really don't think so. But thanks, So
I don't want that job.
My thesis was theology of work, and I don't really want to do that. And so I really thought God was calling me to work in the secular world, creating environments where people could thrive and have purpose and, have a sense of who they are and be proud of what they're doing, to be able to create something where people could work together in community. And so I went back to food, because those environments, if you've ever worked food, are not great. So that's what I really thought God was calling me to. And he did. And I did that for another, 20 years, 15, 20 years. And that's how we ended up here, Dan and I. And Dan and I is a whole nother story we probably don't have time for today. But if you ever want to see how God works and moves, all I have to do is tell you Dan and my story, because there's no way that we would be here if God wasn't doing what he was doing. Yeah. So we moved here, took the job at Washington and Lee, did the same thing, create environments, all of those kind of things. And then I got sick, like out of nowhere, sick. So I have ulcerative colitis. And so it was bad. And then I caught C. diff on top of it. I don't know if you know what that is. So ulcerative colitis is a gut disease. So if you've heard of Crohn's, it's like a level down or so from Crohn's, but the same kind of thing. Okay. And then on top of that, I caught C. diff, which is a blood disorder, which apparently you get. So I was at the point where it was really bad. And thankfully, I say this, nicely, but thankfully it was COVID. I could work from home, which was a good thing. Yeah. But I wasn't getting better. And it took, we finally got the C. diff under control, and now it was the ulcerative colitis. And so I'm working from home, and my husband, Dan, he's driving back from Shaw Air Force Base in the Carolinas, and he calls and he says, here's my God word for you. I said, all right. He goes, stop. And I was like, stop what? I'm already working from home. We already decided I'm going to take medical leave, but as a director, you're not off, right. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. He's like, I think you're supposed to quit. And I'm like, no, he can't really mean that. I've worked full time since I was like 15. He can't really mean stop working, right? And so Dan and I prayed and we talked about it. And the next week I resigned. And about a month later, I started getting better. And so when I was finally feeling better, I said to Dan, we've got to go to Roanoke to the big church. I just need my big fix. We just hadn't found a home church here. And we're a little more south, so there's a lot more Baptist church. There's a lot more. Sure. Just it's different. And so I said, can we just go? I was feeling like I could drive the 40 minutes. I said, I need my fix. Yeah. And so we said, of course, and so we went, and Dan looks at me and he goes, this is home. I said, yep. And so we started going, and I was getting better. And the pastor had already retired, and there was a new pastor. And then that pastor, there was some stuff, and he left, and the pastor came back. He was going to be an interim, and his time was supposed to be up. But, we're in Virginia. It's not the easiest place to find pastors, especially Brother in Christ pastors. There's 4 of us in Virginia total. Oh, wow. And so I don't know, somehow Jim found out that I went to seminary. And then I don't know, next thing I know, this is like August, and the end of October, I have a provisional license, and he was going to stay the whole next year with me. And in February or January, he tells me I'm going to be done in March. Okay. either God's got it or he doesn't, right? I mean, like, what do you do?
Wow.
I guess I'm a pastor now.
So here we go, right? And
wow.
And I fought with God a little about it. You know, we do that arguing thing, but he always wins. And even when I'm fighting him, you know, there's still that you just know this is what he wants you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're doing what he wants us to do. And it's been great, but a little weird journey. So spent a lot of time there. We were at Grantham for 14 years or something like that. And then moved on to down here, Community of Faith.
Community of Faith.
And it's been good.
Wow.
Man, that is fantastic.
God does his thing, right?
Yeah. In spite of us.
Yeah.
In spite of us. Absolutely.
Yes.
In spite of us.
And I like, Jen, I like the phrase that you used, you needed your Bic fix.
Yes.
That could have been a great name for the podcast.
I was thinking
Bic
the same
fix.
thing.
It's your Bic fix.
I really did. You know, there's something, because I've been to a lot of different churches, and I grew up in a fairly dysfunctional home. And, you know, so we went a lot of different places, but never have I been to a denomination where it always just feels real. You know, I've never been to a big church, and I've been to a bunch of them with traveling for conferences, and just that's where we go if there's one around. Never have I heard a pastor say, you all need to work on this. It's, we're in this together. We're in this journey, and it's just, it feels real and authentic. And every big church I've been to, it's felt that way. And I don't know, I have a hard time finding that in other denominations. I'm sure it's there. I don't doubt that. But for me, the BIC is my home. So yeah, I needed a BIC fix.
That's great.
Oh man, that's fantastic. And sounds like Dan's been there for every step of the journey into this transition recently.
He's so supportive, and he's often, so here's the thing, when I'm not listening, either because I don't want to do what he's asking me to do, you know, or things like that, he goes to Dan, and Dan hears him better for me sometimes, because especially if it's something I don't want to do. And no, but he's great. He excessively supportive. You know, my congregation calls him the pastor's wife. And so it's like the running joke. Oh, you're the pastor? No, I'm the pastor's wife. Jen's the pastor, my wife. I'm the pastor's wife. And they just, you know, it's been, he's so supportive, and the congregation, you know, he's great. So,
that's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm the pastor, and he's my pastor's wife, which I know would be offensive to some people in some places, but
I think it's hilarious.
That's who we are, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just love to joke. So
oh man, that is fantastic. So given your journey, which is fantastic, and oh my gosh, I was crying. I was laughing so hard with some of that stuff. Holy moly. So the next question I had for you is tell us about your passion in ministry. And this is a little bit different because you were never planning to be a pastor. This was not your aim. You didn't finally get the job you've been yearning for since the time you were 12. Like, this is, God just kind of brought you into this, like, from the side or something like that, almost like surprising you, like, wait, what? I'm doing what now? So, but it sounds like you've had a passion for authenticity, for people to have a space, like you were talking about your work in the restaurant field. Has that translated to your passion in ministry, like as a pastor where you are at your church? What is your passion in ministry? What kind of gets your engine running, and what's like your beating heart as a pastor?
Just love. I mean, I think it all comes down to love. We share Jesus through our lives and love. And, you know, when you think about congregations and you think, you know, I don't know, there's this illusion out there that, you know, churches have it all together. The people who go to church have it all together. But that's a delusion. I mean, That's not reality. And so I think everything that I have focused on that he has worked in me to do elsewhere is just the same. You know, our little church has gone through a lot, you know, because people are people and we don't always love and treat people the way we ought to. We hurt people. You know, we call it the bad Sunday. It was a bad Sunday. That's what we call it. Anyone who's left in the church says it was the bad Sunday.
Anyone who's left.
And we lost.
Wow.
Like leftover, like still around.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we lost, that Sunday, we lost 4 church families in one day.
Oh my.
And it was, and so we call it the bad Sunday. And, you know, I wasn't the pastor yet, but was in process in the transition. And, you know, the pastor was here before. It wasn't intentional in any way. But, you know, how we say things matters. The things we do matter. And so it was, you know, it doesn't, even though it was unintentional and certainly not in any way meant to hurt anyone, it doesn't change the fact that those things happen. And so since then, you know, you have to learn to trust and you learn to love and you have to learn to put yourself out there again without, I was going to say without fear, but there is fear when you don't know how people are going to respond, when you don't know how people are going to treat you, when you don't know what the end result's going to be, but you do it anyway because that's what we're called to do. And so we've been learning that journey on how to love and trust and grow. And so in some ways, it's not very different than what I was doing before, except I get to talk about Jesus more. You know, you can't at your staff meetings at a public university say, hey, we're going to have a little chat about Jesus today because this is how he wants us to live. You know, we could do that in private conversation, but not publicly. Yeah. And so, you know, when you think about what Jesus did for us, I mean, he made the ultimate sacrifice for us out of love. And all we have to do is strive to live like him. We have to strive to love like him. And that means we fail, often, frequently, but we don't stop trying. And so I think it's been a journey, you know, that same passion to make sure that everyone's on the same page, that everyone feels welcomed and valued and has a place. Just the focus is more on how you do that in God's kingdom as part of our community than just on your own or in this department or that department. So in some ways, you know, God's been doing his thing in me for a long time. I just didn't know. Just often the case with me. I'm a little behind with God wants often, you know.
Yeah.
It just happens, right?
I feel you. Yeah, I mean it's pretty wild, you know, when you look back. You can see how each step along the way was preparing you for wherever you are in the moment. Yeah. And so whether you were in ministry or not, like it really, it's really cool to look back and see that. It's very reassuring because in the moment, it never seems like anything has a point or has a purpose.
Tells us he uses everything for good, but often we don't see that until, you know, we're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 steps down the road. Okay. I know what that was. I get it now.
Exactly. Yeah.
You weren't really just torturing me. You know, it was there was purpose there.
Yeah. Well, Jen, I'd like to move on to our next question here. So in your view, where you are now, what are some of the greatest opportunities in ministry where you are? And what are some of the biggest obstacles, or maybe obstacles is a strong word, struggles, difficulties in ministry
challenges.
Where you are? Yeah. So what are some of the great opportunities and then some bigger struggles?
We're going to do the struggles first because it is
I'm sorry?
a lot of it.
Yeah.
No. We'll do the struggles first because it's so much, you know, we're a small congregation. If everyone's there, I mean, if everyone's there. There's
Yeah.
23 of us,
Okay.
not a large congregation.
Okay. Yeah.
And we're an aging congregation. So there's a lot of people who are older. We're in a renovated gym. So our church doesn't look like a church. It looks like a big gym. And we're surrounded by office buildings. We're not in a residential area at all. So all of those things are challenging, and people typically come to church because someone's invited them to come to church.
Yeah.
But we have probably a third of our congregation who either, it might even be more than that, well, either works from home or doesn't leave their house to go except to go grocery shopping or to the doctor, because that's the stage of life they're in. So all of those things are challenges. On the plus side, we're trying to figure out how we engage our community then. And so we do second Saturday suppers every month. It's a free meal for our community, for our folks to have a time of fellowship, but also for any of our neighbors. And we've done these for about 1.5 years now, and to mixed success. but we're meeting people where they are. We're building relationships with the people that are coming. And some of those people that have been coming on and off for 1.5 years are starting to come to church, not consistently. They come to Bible study like one of the 7 weeks, but they're building relationships and they're making connections. And a good number of the other regulars for our second Saturday suppers, they watch online. They text and communicate with me each week and let me know what's going on. They get our prayer list. We don't send that out to our mass list, but to the people who want to be praying weekly for our congregation and the people that we're caring about. And so, I struggle. It's a struggle, but an opportunity because we're meeting people, we're talking to people where they are, and engaging with them in a place that's comfortable to them without forcing church. And I have had some people say in our congregation, but they don't come on Sunday. I'm like, it's not my job to make people come to church. My job is to share Jesus. And that's maybe not a lovely thing for a pastor to say but I tell Bishop Rob that. If you want me to focus more on numbers, you're going to have to physically tell me that, because my job is to share Jesus, and that's what we do at these. We provide care, we food. Everybody goes home with a leftover meal. They get fellowship and relationship building. We do some kind of craft-ish type thing every week, every month. And so in that craft, we talk about Jesus and our faith and whatever we're doing. This past time, we didn't do a craft. We made chocolate milk to talk about how the Holy Spirit works in our life. And so we do things like that just to make sure we're engaging and talking about Jesus. And it's, we're starting to build those relationships. It takes time. So the opportunity and the hope is that God is doing something. And we're just trusting that he's going to keep doing that, because it's not up to us. All we can do is be faithful and do the things he's asked us to do. And we're trying really hard to do those consistently. But everything else is not our job. We don't make people come to Jesus. We don't make people come to church. The only thing that we're supposed to do is love people and share Jesus. And I know that's really simplistic, and that's not the only thing we're supposed to do, but they're the big things we're supposed to do.
So I've never been to. I think I've driven through Roanoke. I've never like been there. So what can you kind of describe, like, what's the area like where your church is?
So we're not in the city.
Okay.
We're technically county, but we're it's business district. So there's some apartment complexes sort of close. Some housing developments, like on the other side of the main thoroughway, whatever that road is, main road, right?
Sure.
But we're really, we're 4 blocks from a mall. We're surrounded by lawyers and medical offices, and there's a radio station behind us.
Okay.
So we're not very visible, and our building, like I said, a renovated gym, it sits all the way at the back of the parking lot because you needed a big parking lot for the gym.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't see us. We've got a sign at the end of the parking lot, kind of on the road, but then they make you plant so many trees that you can't actually see the sign when the trees are in bloom.
Oh.
So, it's like,
wow.
but it's a great area.
Okay.
We're in certainly one of the safer parts of Roanoke, for sure. And it's hard to say it's community focused because we're business area.
Yeah, sure.
But it's a great little area. I mean, we love it.
Are there
we love the area,
like around here where I'm at in Lancaster, probably where Ryan is, if I had to guess. I mean, we've got like probably 18 to 20 churches within driving distance of coming here. Like, is that kind of similar to where you are? Or?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not for us, not BIC churches. We might have 2 or 3 within 15 to 30 minutes from us, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, our closest is La Roca. They just moved to Roanoke, within the last year or two. They were on the north side of Roanoke, closer to Hollins, and now they have this big facility. It's beautiful. We were just out there for one of their, Dan and I went to one of their couples nights, and they're awesome. You'll love Roberto and May. I mean, they're just such a heart for the Lord and for relationships. And so they're about 15, 20 minutes from us. So kind of close, but completely different language. I mean, it's a Spanish speaking church.
Sure.
And then the other 2 that are closest are south of us, and they're at least an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're about 35 minutes from each other.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we've got the traditional Methodist and Lutheran. We've got a couple Nazarene churches. We've got a Messianic Jewish church, not too far away. A little bit of everything.
Yeah.
But not a lot of connection. But again, that might be me. So that'll be, now that we're functional, I say with a grain of salt, but, functional, we'll start doing seeing what we can do on that end too. But, we don't want to take people from other churches.
Yeah.
We don't. We want to make sure, I mean, if you've got a church home, stay there. What if I don't like it? But you've been going there for a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe we'll like something else better. Yeah, that's not a good reason to change churches. Church isn't a social club. You're going to learn about Jesus, or learning about Jesus or not.
Right.
Well, yeah. I said, well, then stick it out. You can still come to dinner, which maybe is the wrong attitude. No, come to Sunday, but our, we're not trying to.
Yeah.
I don't think any of our churches are trying to take church people from other people. We're trying to reach the people who don't have churches, who don't have that connection. So we'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And so, so it's been neat to see those relationships building. It's been neat to see them start to come on a Sunday. And we weren't ready. That's the reality. We weren't ready.
We weren't ready to have more people come, kind of a thing, or on a Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thinking about, your next question is what's on the horizon? What are you excited about? But, you know, when I look at where we are and where God might go with us, you know, we weren't ready. When I first came and took over, you know, we talked about what's our vision going to be? What do you want that to be? What do we want to be known for? What do we want to strive for? And so they decided that they wanted to be a place where everyone was welcome, a place for all without question. Without question, where Jesus is the focus, the Holy Spirit resides, and we follow him faithfully. And so that's what we came up with, right? And I said, now you got to go home and pray about this because everyone without question is big. Like, you got to mean it, right? And so they went home, came back the next week and said, no, this is what we're going to do. I said, okay, then this is what we're making it, right? And then for like the next 6 or 9 months, well, but what if someone's a child molester? Well, Jesus loves everyone. And we said, we're going to be a place for all without question.
Yeah.
I said, that doesn't mean we won't have conversation. That doesn't mean we wouldn't set, you know, safeguards or, you know, whatever it is that we needed to do to make sure people were safe. But we agreed we were going to do what Jesus told us to do, which is to be a welcoming place for all without question. But it was months and months that I would get these random questions. But what if? What about? What? And it was a long time. But then they started, you know, it seemed like those kind of stopped and everyone realized everybody meant everybody, you know. But we still weren't ready because we had people, you know, God was still working in all our hearts. We had people who would come to church on Sunday, but weren't really engaged. They would come to other events, but they were just there, you know, and this started changing, you know, so the people who'd been there a long time who, you know, would come and say, so-and-so never helped before. What did you say to them to make them help? I didn't say anything. I just said, hey, if you want to help, I got something for you to do, you know, and it just, you could see hearts changing and wanting to engage. And now there isn't a single person in the church who doesn't do something, which is pretty cool, right? I mean,
you got a better hit rate than me at our church.
Yeah, well, there's only 20 of us, so, you know, it's not like, but still, right? But still. And so everyone is engaged. And then, you know, the reality is God was still working in me. Because you know, if you were to go back and listen to some of my earlier sermons compared to now, don't go back and listen to the sermons. Just don't do that. No,
I hear you.
God and I were still figuring it out, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I don't write now until I know what he wants me to say. And that was true before, but I didn't know how to listen. You know, it's a whole different thing talking to your staff and just, you know, sharing at a meeting than it is to preach Jesus. And but now we got a thing going, you know.
We got a
I'm
thing.
not sure I understand it, but he tells me what to do and I do it, you know, and it works. But he was still working, I think, in me too, you know, that we had all of these things. We felt like a really good congregation. And if you were to ask us, we would tell you that we were loving, that of course we wanted to share Jesus, all of those things. And yet we weren't ready. And so now it feels like we're ready, if that makes sense. You know, and we're starting to see, we've had a couple other people trickle in. I don't know from where God's got to be sending them because our people, we don't know anyone to talk to.
Right.
We're working on that too. But, you know, so we're seeing God work in spite of our inability to do some of the things he calls us to do. And so it feels like he has been building and building and building and working on all this stuff to do whatever's next. And we don't know what that is. I have no clue. I just keep saying, okay, God, you tell me what to say on Sunday and let me know what else I should be doing, because I don't know.
Right.
So we just keep going. And and now he's doing that. And so we have this vision statement, but the purpose statement that the church created forever ago when it started, 25 years ago, present God's love through word and deed. So lives are changed and renewed, and fellowships experience as we grow together in the body of Christ. And I don't think that we knew how to do that for real until he did all of the other stuff. Because now we get to love everybody. And we have some challenging people. We have some challenging people that I don't know how to be helpful, as a pastor.
Yeah.
Dan's earbuds keep falling out of my ear. So, we have people who are not going to have a home at the end of the month because of the decisions they've made. And it's 2 weeks away and they don't have another place figured out yet. We have people who don't have the ability to make good decisions. Not even that they don't want to, they just don't even know how. And so we have some challenging people. And yet our congregation, our faith community, they just love them anyway, because that's what we do. And we don't know how else to do anything other than we'll just love you because we got nothing else. We're loving you and we're praying for you, and and speaking the truths when we need to. Dan and I are pretty good at, we're pretty honest, open, blunt people, in love, but I'm not good at pretending things aren't happening just because I don't want to have the hard conversation. We hate the hard conversation, but it's part of what it is too.
Yes.
And so I feel like now that God's been doing all this stuff over the last couple years, now we're ready. I don't know for what, but ready.
Yeah.
For whatever he decides to do.
Yeah. You're talking about this statement that everyone says, yeah, we're in, and then they pray on for another week, and yeah, we're affirmed, we're in. Yes, there's so many things that sound really good in theory. So many of the teachings of Jesus that sound really good when you read it out of the Bible, but when it comes to living it, when it comes time to, wait a minute, is this how it could affect me? Does it mean I have to love this kind of person? Does it mean that I have to change in this way? Like when the rubber starts meeting the road, you're all of a sudden confronted with your own ideals, and you're like, okay, wait, how much do I really mean this? How much do I really want this?
Yeah.
And until you come to that realization, until you're faced with yourself and can figure out all of that stuff, and you come out on the other side saying, actually, yeah, this is the kind of church we want to be. Let's do this. I'm in. Yeah, that has got to be such just a unveiling moment for the church. Just this moment where it's like, wow. Yeah. Let's see what this looks like. Let's do this, and
let's see what happens, right?
Yeah. That is such a neat story, Jen. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, because that's not easy. A lot of churches go through that, particularly in pastor transitions and stuff. It's the questions: who are we? What kind of church do we want to be? And it's not always up to the pastor. Everyone wants the pastor to, hey, this next pastor is coming in. They're going to make our church grow. Right? Numbers, bring people in, like you said, on a Sunday morning, but that's not our job. And to your point, the people invite other people, and God does the work. And even apparently when they're not inviting people, God's doing the work and bringing a couple of people.
God's doing the work, thankfully.
Yeah.
It was funny when we were creating that, because the pastor and his wife before, they really did everything in the church. it was their church. And Dan and I, when we sat down with them to talk about this, I said, so I just need you to know right now, if you expect me to do everything, it isn't going to happen. If you expect Dan to pick up the slack and do everything, that's not going to happen either. So so we're all clear right now, it isn't how it's going to work. And we're going to do this together, because they would say, whatever you want to do, Jen, is great.
Mm.
And for me, that doesn't work, because if they're not part of the discussion, how do I get buy-in? And don't get me wrong, they'll do anything I ask them to do, which is really awesome. In the beginning, I said, well, maybe we're going to start going on Friday night to Buffalo Wild Wings and sitting and having a beer. And they were like, they looked at me funny, and they were like, well, if you think that's what we should do. And I said, okay. And don't get me wrong, we may still end up doing that at some point. Hey. We've got to reach our community somehow. Right. Yeah. But I said, this has to be us. We're a faith community together. I'm the one who gets to stand up on Sunday and preach. And I want to help guide and lead, but this is a collective process, because we're all on the journey. I don't get to decide the journey. Well, because the reality is I'm human too, and I screw up. So we're going to do this together. If we're going to mess up, we'll do it together. And if we're going to succeed, we'll do it together. Whatever it is, because God's got it no matter what. But he didn't appoint me as a pastor to do everything or to make decisions. I really feel he appointed me as pastor so we could grow together.
Yeah.
And that'll be slow growth, as we're seeing, but that's okay. Because how do you build relationships with 30 people at a time? You don't. It's one or two or one family. So when we get a new person, it's like, yes, one person we can build a relationship with. Yeah. That's enough. Thank you, God. We're good.
Yeah.
I resonate so much with a lot of what you just said, but I'll just bring out two things. One quick one. I often say to my staff and to the church board, because I've felt what you've felt, like, how much is actually expected of me. And so I often say, well, remember, this cannot be the Scott show. Like, I don't want to be the center, like, of everything that's going on here. The second thing that I was thinking as you were talking about that, talking about your story was, isn't that the mark of a healthy church or even spiritual growth, when we constantly reevaluate our own faith as individuals, but also as the body of Christ? So you're talking about the purpose statement and how do we actually live that out? And it's like, that's just, the moment where we get complacent enough to think, you know what, we got this, we don't have to change anymore, we've made it. Like, there's probably something wrong there. Like, so it's that constant just self-reevaluation and of the whole church body, which is really good.
Yep.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I'd like to move on to our last question here for you, Jen.
Sure.
Bit of a humdinger, I suppose. But so you had mentioned earlier how you are one of 4 BIC churches in Virginia. Is that correct?
Yeah, there might be one north of us, but in our little area, there's 4. Okay. And we're not even close. I mean, Roberto and I are close, and the other churches are about an hour and a half away.
Okay. And so then a lot of the rest of the churches surrounding you would be other denominations or non-denominational kind of a deal. Have you found much of a community there, support community and stuff like that with other pastors there?
No, but that may be my doing, Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to...
Yeah, no. So I say that may be my doing because I live 40 minutes away from the church. So we're not there all that much. So we're there Wednesday nights and Sundays. We have a daycare in the building Monday through Friday during the day, which is
Oh,
great because we wouldn't be able to pay our bills without them. So
sure.
God,
Great.
that was a blessing that God just kind of threw in our lap when we were getting really freaked out about what we were going to do.
Mm,
So
that's great.
I will say that the 4 big churches in our area, so
Uh-huh.
Roberto and May over at La Roca, and then Mike Laus, who isn't Mike anymore. Mike just retired. He was at Bethel Bick, and
Okay.
Bill in the Dublin church. All of them have been just so supportive. You know, Mike would text or call me once a month just to check in, see how I'm doing, if I need anything. You know, so it's been a blessing in that sense. I know that in the Allegheny region, women in ministry is not exactly their thing.
Right.
We'll just say it that way. I mean, I know of churches who openly tell their people, we don't believe in women in ministry, lead pastors specifically,
Yeah.
but even some of the other kinds of pastors too. And I just, you know, and I feel bad for women who are in those situations if they really feel God is calling them to do something.
Yeah.
But I don't worry about them. I like, and again, this is one of those other things that may sound bad, but I don't really care if they approve of me or not. I don't need their permission to do what I'm doing because there's no chance I would be here if God didn't put me here. It's not like my life's desire has been, I am going to be a female pastor in a big church. I mean, it just, like, not a thing, right? And so God has done all of this to put me here. It's funny, the article you're talking about, when Jill first reached out to me to ask if she could talk to me about being a woman in ministry, I was like, I guess. And then I went and talked to my congregation, you know, some of the people, and I said, so they want to interview me for an article for the conference about being a woman in ministry. What are you guys' thoughts? And they're like, have to do with anything. I'm like, I'm not sure. So if you've got any insight, does this bother you? Is it a thing? And they're like, you love us, you support us, you're here with, you know, they said all these wonderful, nice things. And I said, well, that's really great, but is this an issue? Like, is it? And it just isn't. And I guess because of that, because I know God put me here, I just don't care. And I don't mean that in a don't care, you know. I would like us all to be on the same page and like for the women who are struggling to feel supported, but it's not a thing for me. It may also be that I just have thicker skin because I come from a world that's not female dominated with directors and things like that. And so, but we did have our Allegheny conference a couple of weeks ago, and they let me talk about Awaken. You know, Lawton was like, we don't normally do sponsorship for cursory reports, but we've made an exception. And I was like, oh, thank you so much for the exception. You know, and so how wonderful, right? I mean, so there are people in the conference who are supportive. It's just not necessarily conference wide. And it was funny watching the faces, like some of the blank stares or the, what are you doing up there kind of thing. And I just was like, here we go. This is where we are, you know, blah, blah, blah. I said, I'm not here to change your mind. I'm not here to convince you. I'm just here to share a couple words because I'm not here to make people believe something else. That's not my job. That's all on God. He's going to do it or not. And so I think if women are truly called by God, then he'll help them figure out what that looks like and how to make a way. He surely did for me, and I didn't even want to do this. You know, so if he can do that for someone like me, who this isn't a thing that was something I thought I'd do, then he can surely do that for the people that he has been calling and is calling. And so, But I will say no one's ever been rude or anything like that to me. I don't, but again, maybe I'm just oblivious. It's not important to me.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's
and that sounds bad.
Well, no, I think what I'm hearing is not that you don't care, but that you are.
It's not that I care.
Right. Yeah. It's that you are confident of God's calling and placement on your life. And when you have that kind of confidence, you're just walking in the way. You're just walking in the way that He set out for you. And whether somebody agrees with the fact that you are there or not, what does it change? Like, God put me here. What am I going to do? So I'm hearing a confidence in your calling, and that's beautiful. That's really great to hear. That's awesome.
It's definitely more important to follow God than what other people think.
Yes.
And I don't always do that well, right? Like, I don't always do that well. The beating over the head, He really does do that to me when I'm not listening. So, I'm trying.
Yes.
Yeah.
What He says to do.
Oh, so good. So good. Man. Well, Jen, thank you so much for your time and sharing so freely and openly of your story, of the story of Community of Faith Church where you are there in Virginia. It's so cool. Like, it's one thing to read a little bit of a few paragraphs of a blurb on the blog post, but it's something completely different to speak with you and to hear really your heart for what's going on there and how God has moved in your life. It is such an exciting thing. So thank you so much for giving of your time and for chatting with us today. It's so great.
Thanks for having me. And thanks for, I got to meet 2 new friends.
Yeah,
so
you bet.
Now we've known each other for hours.
Yeah.
I know. This is amazing. Excellent. You're going to be at General Assembly this year?
Yep.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I will be there, so we'll
see you in person in a few months.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Excellent. If you're listening or watching this, we encourage you guys to head out to General Assembly as well. That's going to be out in Cincinnati this year in July. So look forward to seeing you there. Scott, you good? I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks, man.
Awesome. Again, big thanks to Jen. Big thanks to all of you for tuning in, listening, watching, however you chose to take part. We look forward to seeing you on our next episode. Thanks for joining us on Bic Life. We'll catch you next time.
See ya. Hey, thanks for listening to the BIC Life podcast. Brethren in Christ churches exist to follow Jesus, serve others, and make disciples. If you're looking for more information about the BIC denomination, or if you're just looking for one of our local churches, head over to bicus.org. And if you'd like to get in touch with us at the podcast, you can do so by emailing us at biclifepodcast@gmail.com, or you can head over to our website, biclifepodcast.com. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.